first TOEFL reading secret every student should know is that you want to answer vocabulary questions quickly. And in general, you want to answer some questions a bit faster than others. You don't have to remember this. You don't have to remember all the question types. The big thing I want you to realize is that vocabulary questions take a bit less time than other question types, and some question types do take longer than others. And that's important because you have to manage your time well on test day. Now, why does this happen? Why should you answer vocabulary questions faster? Well, it's pretty simple, because they ask you in just 4 words, A, B, C, or D. There's not a lot to read. There's not a lot of information to process. All you have to process is the highlighted word and the sentence in context. You should answer this pretty quickly. Don't spend too much time on vocabulary questions, because you will have questions that are a lot longer, like this paraphrasing question. It's called sentence simplification. A, B, C, and D. Look at how many words you have to read. Look at how much information you have to process. You have to process a ton of more information. You have to read a lot more than you have to do for a vocabulary question. So make sure that the simpler questions you take a bit less time. In general, you should have a kind of rough idea of where you should be while you're doing the reading. So like at 10 minutes, you should be around question 6 or 7. At about 30 minutes, you should be about question 17 or 18 and almost done with the reading. So have an idea in mind of your timing as you're going through it, and just remember, some questions will take longer than others. For example, a summary question is the last question of each passage. So in that case, those questions take more time. You want to have plenty of time to do summary questions. The next secret I wish more students knew about was that you can make inference questions a lot easier. A lot of people struggle with inference questions and find them very tricky. I want to make them easy for you right now. So let's do that. So this will be like a little mini lesson here. So first of all, what is an inference? An inference is a conclusion reached based on evidence. So inference and author's purpose, they don't directly state it. So these questions, it's not like finding a detail in the passage. You have to kind of make an educated guess, a conclusion based on what you read. So I'll give you a couple simple examples. This is not TOEFL. You look out the window and notice clouds in the sky. You take an umbrella. That's an inference. It's going to rain, right? You're speaking about your problems to your friend at work and he yawns. Well, probably I'm boring him and I should change the subject. So if I look at a sentence like this and say, she almost always comes to work on time, what's an inference you can make based on this sentence? What do you think? What's an inference you can make? She almost always comes to work on time. Well, sometimes she comes to work late. It's not always, it's almost always, which means probably she's sometimes late. That's an inference. That's the kind of thing that they're looking for in the TOEFL. So one way to make an inference is to analyze the modifier. A modifier, usually we think of them as adjectives or adverbs. We'll just keep it simple. We'll keep it simple. So for example, the big dog, big is an adjective, right? And it's describing dog, that's the modifier, right? And ran quickly, how did they run? Oh, they ran quickly. Okay, so you're modifying, changing the noun or the verb. So let's make some inferences with modifiers. Let's look at a couple of examples, and these are things that you might see on the test. It's one of the biggest buildings. Well, there are probably other bigger buildings. He owned most of the land. Well, there's some land he didn't own. There are 500 known butterfly species. Well, there are unknown butterfly species. This is the best TOEFL course. There are other TOEFL courses of a poorer quality. And there is usually enough snow to go skiing in December. Sometimes there's not enough snow. Okay, so these are inferences that you can make based on modifiers. This will come up on the test. Sometimes it's not just a modifier though with an inference. Sometimes they give you some conditions and you have to understand the conditions. You could think about it like if you're learning the rules of a game. So let's say we're talking about soccer. There are 2 teams and each team is allowed to have 11 players on the field. Well, then I guess you can't have 12 players on the field. Or if you have 10 players, you can't play. You know, those are things that I am going to infer based on the conditions, based on the rules. So let's look at some examples here. Margaret Fuller also came to prominence as a leading transcendentalist and advocate for women's equality. You don't have to know this stuff, but all you have to know is that women were not treated equally, because if she's an advocate for women's equality, then probably women weren't treated equally. Conventional agriculture is ill-suited to solve the food crisis, but hydroculture might be a potential solution. Well, I guess hydroculture is an unconventional form of agriculture. The indoor location allows farmers to create controlled environments. Well, I guess outdoor locations are harder to control. So you see, I'm looking at these conditions, and then I'm making a good guess, a good conclusion based on these conditions. Okay, so that's inferences, and those are the ways to find the answers to it. So hopefully on test day you can see that as well. This lesson, if you're finding it helpful, there's a lot others like it in the TOEFL emergency course. So this is for students who just want their score as quickly and as easily as possible. Study plans for 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, and 1 month. Basically, if you want all of your tips and tricks, you want all of your practice questions, all your practice tests, everything included in one course, perfect. TOEFL emergency course. If you have more than a month, more than 2 months to prepare, you might want to try something else, but this is perfect if you have less than a month to prepare. All right, check it out. Emergency course. Also, the link in the description, this price is only for the YouTube audience. So make sure you follow the link in the description to that. All right, next one. Do not skip questions. So you want to make sure you use the review button. This is a kind of thing that people don't talk about too much. Even when you go to ETS's website and you take their TOEFL reading practice test, there's actually no review button. But still, I mean, I took the test a couple months ago, it's still there. And so if anybody doesn't see it, let me know. But this is from an older test, and this is a review button here. Basically, if you press this button, it will go to a list of the questions. On test day, you only have 20 questions. This is an older picture. But yeah, there'll be 20 questions, and you can click on any of these questions and you could jump to the question. I don't recommend you skip. I don't recommend you jump around too much. But if you need to go back at some point, or you just want to check something, use the review button. It's really helpful. Okay. All right, next one. And yeah, just don't skip. I really don't want you to skip. And again, the reason that I don't want you to skip, let me just go back really quickly, is because this is a story with a beginning, middle, and end. You don't want to go from question 1 to question 5 and then back to question 2. It's going to be hard to follow the story. Okay, so make sure you go in order. But if you need to, check out the review button. Okay. Next secret is use the given sentence and summary questions. So I probably get more questions about summary questions than any other question type. Students tend to struggle with it the most. I have more tips than this, but this is the big tip that I usually give to students. And let me explain. The reason why it's so hard, first of all, is because it's one of the few questions that ask you about the entire passage. That's why it's the last question, question 10. Because you probably have read all of the passage by now, and question 10 is a summary of everything. So you have to kind of, you have to have known what you read about. That's one thing. But one thing you can do is that you can look at this given sentence that they give you, and you can probably eliminate choices because they don't match this given sentence. Now, this isn't always the case. It might not help you too much on test day, but I find it helps pretty often with finding the correct answer. And let me show you what I mean. We haven't read this passage. I want you to keep this in mind. You haven't read a word of this passage yet, and we're still going to be able to eliminate 1 or 2, if we're lucky 3, but really probably just 1 or 2 things that are probably not right. Transcendentalism was an intellectual movement in which prominent thinkers sought greater levels of individualism and spirituality. So this is about transcendentalism, what it was, the topic, the definition, and some of the people who were part of that movement. Now, I'm going to eliminate C and D. Why is that? Well, let's look at C. Emerson was friends with other transcendentalists like Henry David Thoreau and Margaret Fuller. This is about this guy, Emerson. This is not about transcendentalism. It's not connected to the given sentence. Margaret Fuller could not attend Harvard because she was a woman. This is about Margaret Fuller. This is not about the given sentence. So I don't think those are the correct answers. Of course, it's best if you read the passage and understand everything, but those don't make sense because they don't match this. There have been many contributions to organizational psychology over the past century. Okay, so this is about organizational psychology and the contributions to it. At least one option I can eliminate. You remember, you have to pick 3 correct options for this. I can eliminate one. Organizational psychologists are sought out by businesses. So this is about businesses trying to employ organizational psychologists. This is not about contributions to organizational psychology. It's a long phrase, organizational psychology. It's not about that. So I can at least eliminate C. I still have 5 options, but at least I can eliminate that, right? Let's look at one more example. Some animals behave in ways that seem altruistic. And while there are several explanations for this, there is also an argument that animal behavior is not and cannot be deemed altruistic. So this is basically about altruism, and that there is an argument that even though some people think behavior is altruistic, it's not really altruistic. Okay. One choice I can eliminate is that some argue that it is best not to apply the terms that describe human behavior to animal behavior. So this is about human behavior and animal behavior. So I don't think it matches this term altruistic. Now, I could be wrong. I should read the passage. But again, you're using this sentence to help you eliminate choices and get closer to the answer. Okay. So that's the given sentence and summary questions. Use it to help you at least eliminate answers and maybe even find some correct ones. The last secret is that questions go in order. Now this is, I don't know if you know this or not. A lot of people don't know this for some reason, but if the answer to question 1 is here, a lot of times the answer to question 2 is somewhere around here, just after question 1. Now there are some questions where you have to read the whole paragraph, but most questions the answers are in a sentence or in 2 or 3 sentences, sometimes in the whole paragraph. They'll usually tell you what paragraph it's in, so like this says in paragraph 1, so you know it's in paragraph 1. But if the answer is in the first sentence, and it says this question 2 says paragraph 1, the answer is probably later on, just after the answer. So this helps you save time because you know where to look. It also helps you save time because you don't have to read the passage first. This gets people in a lot of trouble because time management is an issue in reading. If you read the whole passage first and then answer the questions, you're probably going to run out of time. So instead, you read and answer at the same time, and you can do that because the questions go in order. Question 1 is here, 2 is here, 3 is here, and you're reading and answering at the same time. They go in order. So keep that in mind. Of course, there's summary questions where you have to answer everything, but that comes at the end. And there are questions where you have to read the whole paragraph, but really the questions just go in order. Helps you save time, and it helps you find answers faster because you know where to focus. As if you know where the answer was from the last question, you know it should be just under there. All right, except of course for summary questions where you have to know the whole passage, right? So keep that in mind. That's it. Those are the 5 TOEFL reading secrets. Hope you guys found that helpful. Now practice these secrets in this practice test right here. I'll put a link to it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.